We are on page 318 in the Maamar Shehikdimu. It's the second chapter, Pedic Beis. So, just to recap, let's read quickly the kitzur, the synopsis of the first chapter right before. Let's read it. Hakdamas Nasa L'Nishma. We brought the Chazal that we received crowns. The Malachim crowned us with crowns because we prefaced Nasa before Nishma. We will do before we will understand. And the Rebbe asked two questions on that, or really one question. They're subdivided into two. And he started to explain Yavi Dugma Mikabala Soil Malchus Shemayim Tchila V'Achakach El Mitzvos. He brought the Gemara, I think, in Brachas. The Gemara says that the reason why Shema V'Hafta is before V'Hoyim Shemaya, the first section of Shema is before the second section, is because we preface accepting Hashem, accepting the yoke of Hashem first, and only afterwards do we talk about the mitzvahs V'Hoyim Shemaya. We also learned earlier that Nishma, in quotes, understand, Hainum, what we really mean here is Nsima slave, being attentive, making our heart be attentive. La mitzvahs, to the mitzvahs, b'diuk, precisely. Okay, let's continue.
Rabbi, which page? Where are we?
318.
Okay, 318, where are you?
The beginning of chapter 2.
Oh, you just started off at the beginning. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
However, b'chadei sheyeh nishma, in order for there to be nishma, shehu simas halev b'chol mitzvah. This is the idea of making the heart be attentive to every mitzvah, beprotius, in detail, hu davke al yidei hakdamas nasa l'nishma. Now the Rebbe adds that specifically, how will that happen? What will make a person be careful to the details of the mitzvahs, not just to do them and be yotze, I've done it, but rather to focus and get into it and, as he said, be mahader and beautify the mitzvah? That comes only when you first have the mindset which we call Hakdamas Nasa L'Nishma. When you have the mindset of prefacing Nasa before L'Nishma, then you'll succeed in being masim leiv to bechol prat uprat of the mitzvah. The Nasa hu pchinas kabbalah soil. Nasa itself is accepting the yoke. Shemekabel al atzmoi oil malchus yizborich. You accept upon yourself the yoke of Hashem. Lasa is bechol asher yigzoir, to do whatever Hashem decrees. Omer, you do. Mibli lihischakois achri ataimim klal uklal. Without searching and questioning and debating for reasons at all. Hashem says do, I do. And once you have the general acceptance of the yoke of Hashem in the mindset called Nase, Hariyasiyas Hanishma, then the performance of the Nishma on your part of understanding what Hashem wants, Hu ba'ofen acher legamri, it's totally different. Asher be'emes kifi hamuvin me'oinyin, as we understand from the idea here, the Kabbalah soil yesh beis madregis. In accepting the yoke of Hashem, we actually have two levels. Shehu inyan naseh, one is the idea of we will do. Shu b'chinas Kabbalah soil lases ulakayim kifishiyah rotzen bechol prat sheyeh, which is the level of accepting the yoke to do and to fulfill whatever is the will of Hashem in every detail. Shezeu in Nasa v'nishma, this is the idea of Nasa v'nishma. D'chol mashe yishma hariyasa. In other words, the first level is that whatever we will hear and understand, we will do. We won't question, we'll do. Omnam, however, Yesh oid oivim b'Kabbalah soil. The Rebbe says there's a deeper aspect of accepting the yoke of Hashem. V'hu, and this second level, Yonasin, pnimi yoser, is more bepnimius, is deeper within the person. What is this? V'hu, the mindset that we call Hagdomas Nase L'Nishma, prefacing Nase L'Nishma. And look how he explains it. The oid koidim sheyedeya mayu in yoni hagzeira vatzivuyim, that even before he knows what the details and are, he doesn't even know the details. Mikol mokim legoydel HaKabbalah soil, but since he has such great acceptance of the yoke of HaKabbalah soil, Moiser Atzma, he dedicates himself L'kayim Kifi Mashayi Atziva Achakach, to fulfill it, whatever the command will be later on. So let me explain. We have two things. The first aspect of Kabbalah soil is I hear what Hashem wants, and I understand, and nevertheless I do it because Hashem said so. In other words, I kind of disregard. It's not relevant. But it's not relevant. But B'Poyel, you heard and understood what he wants. But your doing is mitzat Kabbalah soil. The second aspect of Kabbalah soil is that even before you heard, you already accept. That's a deeper level of Kabbalah soil. In other words, let's talk it out. In the first level of Kabbalah soil, how do you know that the reason why you're doing it is because of Kabbalah soil, or is because you understand what Hashem says? Maybe you really don't know. I understood what Hashem wants, and now I commit myself to doing it. But in the second level, that's why he calls it pnimi. He said it's deeper, it's more pnimius. The mindset is, I don't have to know what the details are. I'm committed to you, Hashem, Kabbalah Zayim. And later on, when I'll learn and understand, okay, great, it's gravy on top of it's the gravy. But the reason I'm doing it is because Kabbalah soil. So that's why the Rebbe says that the second level of Kabbalah soil is deeper, it's Pnimi Yoser. And he continues. And this second level is what we mean, this mindset, Shmuel, is what we call Hagdomas Nase L'Nishma. The first Kabbalah soil is not called Kabbalah's Hagdomas Nase L'Nishma. The first level is, I already had Nishma, but nevertheless, I focus on the Nase. Even if I don't preface Nasa before Nishma, and I didn't, I have Nishma, and I say, I'm committed to you, Hashem, so even although I understand, I'm not doing it because I understand, I'm doing it because of you. Okay, it's a gewaltige Sache, it's very great, but it's still not the idea of Hagdomas Nasa L'Nishma. That's what he says. Let's continue. Just go back 2 lines. The mindset of Hagdomas Nase L'Nishma, it consists of, even before knowing what the details are, but nevertheless, because you have such great Kabbalah soil, you dedicate yourself to fulfill whatever the command will be later afterwards. I'm committed to you, Hashem, so I trust you. Whatever you tell me, I'm going to do. I have no qualms with it. And he says, Shazuhi madregas nailis. This is a very great madrega. Ta'gam shakabala seil shebebchinis nase higam ke madrega nechayna. The Rebbe says the first level of Kabbalah soil isn't small change. It's a proper level, In other words, Yonason, to do something because of Kabbalah soil and not because I understand it, that's also a fine commitment. But nevertheless, it's not the mindset of Akdomas Nasal Nishma. Mikol Mokim, Hari Kabbalah Soil, who rak el prote haritzoinos, lishmoya kol rotzen ulekaimoi. The sensation and feeling of the first level of Kabbalah Soil is the following. I'm committed to the details of your desire, Hashem. Lishmoya kol rotzen, to hear every will of yours, ulekaimoi. So the result of the first Kabbalah Soil is that I want to do the details. The details impact the person, and the details cause the person to want to do them. So it's the specific Ratzon Hashem that generates the Kabbalah Soil. Conversely, look further, Mashen came, HaKabbalah Soil, Dakdomas Nasal Nishma, the second Kabbalah Soil, the mindset of prefacing Nasa before Nishma, Shehu HaKabbalah Soil v'habitul. This is a Kabbalah Soil and a humility and a bittul of subservience. Lebal haratzoin. We have now a new word, new words brought in the Maamar, to the Bal haratzoin, to the master, to the owner of the will. In other words, here we're not focusing on the ratzoin, we're focusing on the Bal haratzoin. Shehu bittul pnimi yoni. This type of bittul, it's much deeper. Let's just take a simple example. When someone asks you to do something, if you do it because what he asks is something you relate to and something that you like and something, there's a certain commitment. But the commitment is because of the content of what he asked you to do. The content generates the commitment. What if that content doesn't excite you? You don't do it with the same chayas. You don't do it with the same energy. So that commitment is a commitment that is conditioned. There's a deeper commitment, irrelevant of whether it excites me or not. I do it with the same exact excitement. Why? Because I like you. I'm doing it for you. So sweeping the floor, climbing a mountain, learning davening, or going to business, if you want me to do any of those things, it's all the same. Because it's all about you. You. Famous song of Rabbi Chaim Dalfin. I bin du unten du. It's all you. It's all you. Upwards is you, downwards is you, to the right is you, to the left is you. Before we forget, Moshe, good morning, welcome. Do me a favor, send everyone page 319 now and 320 because we're going down to 319 very shortly. Thank you, Moshe. Anyway, so what is the phrase used in Chasidus? And it's brought right here. The commitment being to you, Bal Harotzin. Like the words, Yoni Bal Habayis. He's the Bal Habayis. He is the owner. He's the master. The commitment is to the master, to the owner, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. That comes only when you have the mindset called Naseh Koydem L'Nishma. If you don't have that mindset, your commitment is Guvaldik. He says here the word Shmuel, he says it's Nechoina, right? He says before, he says there's Madreges Nailis and there's Madrege Nechoina. It's Madrege Nechoina. It's not small change, believe me. To do everything Hashem wants, to pay attention to the details of the mitzvahs, thank you, Moshe, is a gewaldige Zach. It's not an easy job. But nevertheless, it's not complete Kabbalah Soil. Complete Kabbalah Soil is not doing it because the mitzvah generates and conditions you to do it. But rather, Hashem, who is the commander of the commandment, i.e. the commander-in-chief, it's about him. So if it's about him, whether it excites me or not, I do it with the same chayas. And that's why the hardest avodah is Kabbalah Soil. And you should know, in Chabad, in the yeshiva, this was the most difficult thing. There's a shliach, I think I might have told you this once, but it's worth repeating, in Long Beach, California. Shmuel knows him. His name is Rabbi Moshe Engel. You know, he's already probably a 70 to 75-year-old man. He was from I think he came out in 1969, 1970. Rabbi Kuhn brought him way back. He's from the original Chabad Shluchim. So he has a lot of Kabbalah soil. You know, and his job originally was teaching, I think, first graders, okay? And he loved teaching the children Aleph Beis. And then he later got into working with college campuses. So someone told me that they saw, he learned in Montreal, in the Chabad Yeshiva in Montreal years ago in the 60s. And they happened to see the book in which the Mashgiach would mark the students, if they came on time to Chasidus, 7:30 a.m. Now I can tell you from being in yeshiva that most guys didn't come 7:30. And Yonason knows as well. 7:40, 7:35, 7:45, some guys 8 o'clock, some guys never showed. But you know, the base of medicine was packed, but there was only 10 guys that really came exactly. Whatever, you're getting up in the morning, some are going to the mikveh, some are running, whatever the case. So this guy told me that he saw the book of the Mashgiach of Montreal, and next to Rabbi Engel's name, there was a check every single day that he was in that yeshiva, and I think was there 4 to 6 years. Every day that he was there, he had a check next to 7:30. That's Kabbalah Soil. That's the hardest thing. Because it's not 7:31, it's 7:30. They tell the story, the Rebbe in 1944, the Rebbe's father, Rebbe Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, passed away in 1944. And the Rebbe, would say Kaddish, of course. So he came he asked the Gabbai, I think it was Rabbi Yochanan and Gordon, what time does the minyan start or something? So he said 9:30, 9:35. The Rebbe turned to him, is it 9:30 or 9:35? Now, I don't want to make it sound like the Rebbe never, by the Fabrengens, or he sometimes came in a few minutes late. But overall, the preciseness and a minute is a minute and a second is a second. That's a very tough avodah. And in Chabad, those individuals who mastered Kabbalah Soil had the greatest respect, more than the greatest Maskilim and Chasidus, those that know so much Chasidus, and more the guys that knew a lot of Gemara. And the proof is from a third, not story, but the third episode. There was a known Chabad Mashpia. His name was Reb Nissen Nemenov. He came from the old country. He learned in the Lubavitcher Chadorim. And he would fabring sometimes when he came to Crown Heights. And he also fabranged, of course, in Paris. He was the Mashpia and the Menahel of the yeshiva in Brunois, it's called, in France, a suburb of Paris. Anyway, so when he would fabring, there could have been other Hasidim that were 10 to 20 years older than him, and they wouldn't say a word. When they gave the floor to him, because and some of them, in knowledge they knew more than him, but in Kabbalah Soil no one beat him. He was a soldier that stood at the front of serving Hashem, and his rigidity was such that they couldn't match his rigidity. nor in a way that they want to match it. In other words, you have to be a certain style, a certain makeup to have the rigidity of Kabbalah soil every moment. It's a very hard avodah. So there was a chassid in Paris, Rabbi Yisrael Noyach, Rabbi Reichik, Chana Liba Reichik, from California's grandfather, and he was born in 1884, 85. He lived 100 years. He lived. So he was 20 years older than Reb Nissen. Reb Nissen was born in 1904 or so. And he would sit next to him sometimes at a Farbrengen, and he wouldn't say anything unless Reb Nissen asked him to say something, because Kabbalah soil. So what we're learning here has a practical identification. The virtue of Kabbalah soil precisely. So the Rebbe here explains in the Maamar, Moshe, that there's two levels. One level is a commitment that's generated by the mitzvah. The mitzvah stimulates the commitment to do it. And the Rebbe says that's fine. It's fine. But Moshe, it's not the highest, it's not the greatest. Why? Because the stimulus is conditioned on the mitzvah. Whereas the higher level of Kabbalah soil, he calls it Madrege Nailis, the ultimate is the acceptance of Him, God. So if you accept Him, and I don't mean just accept Him, I mean live with that acceptance, that acceptance is the reality, then regardless of what he wants, it's not relevant to you, the details. I don't do it because of the details. You know how you ask, so what's it about? What are the terms? I'm not interested in the terms. I'm not interested in what's it about. I'm only interested in you, Hashem. So if I have that relationship, I know that whatever you want is the right thing. Sometimes my mind doesn't get it and my heart doesn't get it. So what? See, the test is in the result. The test is in the result. How do you react when there's something that doesn't go the way you understand or the way you feel? That's the question. So it's very easy, talk is cheap. It's easy to talk. But when you face the situation, then one sees, is my commitment to the mitzvah or my commitment is to Him? And there have been people over the generations who their commitment was to the mitzvah, and then slowly but surely it subsided. Because the mitzvah goes only so far. There's certain conditions and terms and all those things that play into the atmosphere and environment of a mitzvah. What if that environment doesn't exist anymore? Look here, let's look now, right? Here comes Corona. 2 months, we're isolated. Are we davening with the same kavanah and the same commitment in our homes or wherever we're davening in isolation or near isolation, right? Are we davening with the same commitment, kavanah, and excitement as we do when we're in shul? Just ask yourself that simple question. And if your answer is yes, then the place and locale makes no difference. So Yoni mentioned to me yesterday, and I understand very well what he's saying, because I'm also human, that, the davening on a porch, it's just not the same as davening in shul. That's true. That's true because the porch and the shul is what's turning us on or off. But if we work towards davening towards you, what's the difference if you daven in a bunker, in a shul, or on your porch? You know the difference is whether you have light, air, and other conditions. And so it's what we call in Chasidus gilui. Whether there's revelation, inspiration. But Moshe Meyer's revelation and inspiration is not essence. Essence is attachment to God. Whether you're in a bunker, your porch, or in a shul, makes no difference. Or a desert, it makes no difference. Because I'm davening to you. I'm not davening to the mitzvah standing Shmoneh Esrei. And like I say, it's a very hard avodah. It takes a lot out of us to come to a place that I do the mitzvah not because of the mitzvah, but because of the commander who commands the mitzvah. So it's so easy to say, I accept God. Yeah, of course, me. What's the question? I believe in Hashem. Ask any from person. Of course, I believe in Hashem. But when you ask this question, you're not going to get the same answer. Just ask them if they daven with the same kavanah on their porch as they do in shul. And if they say no, then you ask, why not? Are you davening because of the mitzvah of the shul environment? Or are you davening to him? And if you're davening to him, now that his will is vis-a-vis government and law, and that we daven at home or on a porch, I daven with the same chayas. There's a rabbi in Crown Heights, Rabbi Bogomilsky, so he once told me, he's a rabbi of a shul in Beis Rivka on Crown Street and between Nostrand and New York Avenue in Crown Heights. It's an old shul, and the Chabad bought it, and it's the girls' school called Beis Rivka. And the auditorium there, the level of the shul where they have, gatherings and rallies and talks can hold probably 500 to 1,000 people. It's very large. But this, in the good days in Crown Heights, most people went to 770 to daven at the Rebbe's minyan. So he told me, and so what did he have? 20 people in shul, some local people. So he told me, and he would give a drasha, right? Every Shabbos, the rabbi gives a sermon. He would give a drasha, and he told me he spoke very loud, and in his mind, he had 1,000 people in front of him. That's the way, and as I said to Rabbi Bogomilsky, like the reality is you have 20 people. He says, if I took for a moment into consideration I have 20 versus 1,000 or 500, I wouldn't be here. I would lose my koyach. I would lose my energy. I wouldn't be excited. And I know myself. So to me, I have to make believe. I have to imagine, or in the words of our Maamar, I have to have the Kabbalah soil that Hashem wants me to stand on the pulpit now and to give a sermon, a drasha, whether it's one person, 10 people, or 1,000 people. On the other hand, I once spoke to one of my mashpiyah, and he said to me, he confided, he says, if I don't have a crowd to speak to, it's hard for me to speak if I bring. He told me that. That wasn't him. And he's a very Hasidic Jew, and all. But this is this. So I'm showing you could be very Hasidic, very Talmudic, and you could be a big macher, but your character and your psyche has not yet become glued with him. That's what Chasidus is pointing to. That's what we're pointing to in this Maamar. Are you glued to him, or are you glued to yourself? So that's it. That's it. And it's it's hard to kind of face this reality, but the only way to grow is to face the reality that we're at now and say, I need to work more on myself. I need to commit more to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that's a practical result of this. Yes, Moshe. Yes.
This is in line with what you're saying. I know it's a little off topic, but isn't this directly tied to our level of emunah as well? That, if we drop something, a nice object, and it breaks, and we get upset, but if we really have emunah Hashem, that should also not be altered, right? We should be composed and not get angry or not.
Absolutely. But here we're talking about the aspect of Kabbalah soil. But yes, if you have true Kabbalah soil, your emunah is 100%. Yeah. Let's continue. Bottom of 318.
Right. Okay.
Rabbi, just a question on Kabbalah soil, right?
Yes.
I understand the what. I understand the definition, and I understand what we're trying to do here. But I don't understand is the how. Is the how through his bindiness? Is that how we attain?
Yes.
also?
Yes. First, let's see if he says so, but the answer is yes. You're right. It's not, but it's not through, saying na na nach or yechi chi chi or eating bagels or reading segulas on such days. In Chabad, it don't work. Okay? In our system, and I'm not saying na na nach is no good, yechi is no good, and reading skulas from here and there, and and sniffing the snuff. You could do all these things. But in Lubavitch, in Chabad, it's just as you said, it takes his bonus. So you're 100% right. And practically, we all know to make a change, this cup of ours, this thick head, has to be turned on. And if it's turned on, then that heart starts pumping with blood and starts feeling. But it comes through his bonus. I live here in Borough Park. I've been diving, here. You see the Hasidim, they shake themselves up and they scream, and that's their style, And believe me, they're very fine people, really, really, really special people. But it's a different avodah. The Sfardim read Zohar like we read Tehillim. They read Zohar. That's their avodah. I mean, I was about 20 years ago, maybe more. I took a group of three people, one from New Jersey, one from California, and one from somewhere else, and we went to see the Baba Sali's nephew. His name was Machluf Lasri. He was a Makubal, and he lived in Dimona. So we went up to Tzfas. I took him to Tzfas to be Mispalel at the Kforim. We stopped in Dimona first, and we met him. And I made, by the way, a video of it, and you can actually see how a Makubal does Kabbalah with us. It's very interesting. I don't think there's such a video out there. This is a real Makubal. You see him take out a book and telling me to put my hand on the book, and then he starts reading. It's the names of God. It was a big black book with pages, and after he starts telling me, talking to me in Arabic, and I had a translator in Hebrew, and a Yerushalmi, and different things. So it's interesting just to see the workings of a Makubal. I don't know, I found it interesting. You always hear about a Makubal. And here I was right in front of a real Makubal, and he did it. So we had it videoed, Baruch Hashem, and I produced that video. Anyway, so...
Is that on YouTube somewhere? Or
No. Maybe I should put it. I don't know. No, right now it's just on video, on a DVD. So, and then we left. It was interesting. He told people things. He said to one of the guys from New Jersey, he said, you've had kidney problems, and don't worry, you'll be all right. He didn't write anything. I didn't say anything, and indeed he had kidney issues. I saw this with my own eyes. I'm not joking. Then, the only thing that you were supposed to do is write the names of whoever you want him to daven for. So I wrote down my whole family, all my children. So he took the paper and he went like this on the paper, and then he picks up a head and starts writing. And the Yerushalmi says, so I say, what is he saying? So he says, he's asking, do you have a daughter that is not feeling well? So I said, no, when I left America, thank God, all my children were well. He says, don't worry. It's a temporary thing. It's going to pass. You have nothing to worry about. And I'm totally like, what? I go outside. I call my wife from there, and my daughter Chaya Bushka at the time came down with chicken pox. After I left, chicken pox stays for a little while and leaves. And there was 4 children, my son and my 3 daughters, and somehow going like this, he starts talking about this daughter. So it was very interesting. Anyway, this is the point. That's not the point I want to make. After we finished with him, we went to Tzfas. I was in Tzfas. I realized, I forgot my hat. Where did I forget my hat? By Machluf Lasri in Dimona. Oh my gosh. And it was so hot outside. We got to drive back down to Dimona. Well, you got to do what you got to do. It's my hat. When we came, it was already night. I came there to get my hat. I saw him sitting by a table or a bench outside because it was very hot inside. And there was a fluorescent type of light over the table. And he was reading Zohar. So the Avodah of the Sfardim is, and I'm not saying he didn't understand the Zohar and he didn't learn the Zohar, I'm not saying that, but there is a serious Avodah of reading Zohar. Just as we have a serious Avodah of what? Of Tehillim. And that's a great thing. But that's not what we're talking about here, Yoimi. That's not going to make the... Usually to make a deep interchange, it needs seichel. And in Chabad, we use what you said before, his bonus. Let's continue down the bottom, please. So he says, Shahu bittul pnimi yosef. The last line, 318, second word. After the Yidden prefaced Nase before Nishma, Oz Madreges Nishma Gufa Hibaflo Yosef, top of 319 now. Then the level, the mindset of we will understand is more wondrous, is greater. Let's see what he says as we see in actuality. We see in people's character and nature. You can't compare the doing, the maisem, which is b'kabbalah soil el harotzain or el balarotzain. You can't compare the two levels. You can't compare if my behavior, if it's just generated by the yoke, by the rotzin, the detail, the will of God, or if my commitment and my practice is because of my commitment to the master of the will, the Baal HaRotzim. And he explains, when I do the Kabbalah soil because I'm committed to the master, the Baal HaRotzim, then my action is more precise. I'm more interested, Moshe, in the details. The details become relevant. And without the details, it doesn't work for me. Right? Because, one second. But he doesn't say the other side. The other side is if you do it only because of the detail, not because you're committed to him, then the performance of the mitzvah is not as precise. I did it. Does the strap on the tefillin have to be below the yud, on top of the yud, on the mabarta? I mean, all these details of Shulchan Aruch. Who cares? Who cares? Right? I'm putting on tefillin. Be happy I'm putting on tefillin. And I like putting on tefillin. And I want to put on tefillin. But every little detail, that's the difference. And think about it. When you're really attached to someone, you really love someone, and you like someone, and you respect someone, you want to do everything for that someone. And everything means in every detail. Because you know the details, he likes the details, or she likes the details. If you just do it, but you don't emphasize the details, it's an action, it's a nice thing, but it's a commitment that's not complete. That's what we're saying. A complete commitment, comes only when you come to the place in yourself that you're committed to him, the Baal HaRotzim. The Rebbe says, using the above analogy, we'll also understand when it comes to doing mitzvahs. We're on the fourth line. You can't compare it all. The fulfillment of the mitzvah and the beautification of the mitzvah, the way it is when you just accept the will, the in comparison to the way it is, and that you accept the master of the will. So this discussion here, we'll end over here today. So this discussion is a very important one because, you know what they say, all the difference is in the details. In the overall general commitment, you don't see a difference. It's in the details that you see the commitment. And that's what we learned today. That the concern for the details is if you're really in touch with the one who prescribes the details. Chevre, it's Shabbos Bevorchim, it's Chodesh Sivan, Chodesh Ashlishi, bring it together, right? Nisan and Iyar, Chodesh Ashlishi is gewaltig gesagt, Shabbos Bevorchim, Parshas Bamidbar. The Rebbe called for this Shabbos to be Shabbos Achdus, because Vayichan Sham Yisrael we all camped together with one heart, one man, one heart, all together. So the Rebbe called for this Shabbos to be a unity Shabbos, the Shabbos before Shavuos. So unite yourself with yourself, unite your family with your family, with you and your wife and your kids and all that, and unite the community, and just the whole idea of bringing people together and truly having Avas Yisrael, especially a time like this. It's not a time to bring up issues of divisiveness and machlekes. Leave that for another time, hopefully never. But just like the Shulchan Aruch says, that the month of Av is a time to have, is not a time to have a judgment, a court case with a non-Jew, because the mazel of Av is not, the issue of Av is, not a great one, at least outwardly. The Pnimius is the greatest, as Chasidus explains. And you should do it rather in the month of Adar, which is the month of Purim. So the ideas that are, stressful and difficult, sometimes you have to just put them aside, push them off. We'll get back to it. There's nothing like sleeping on something, I think I told you the Rebbe Rashab had a brother, Reb Zalman Aaron. They called him Razo. So I read once, I can't find it, I'd love to find it, but I read once in his name that he suggested that when you're angry about something, you shouldn't talk for 61 minutes. Now, he didn't say why. I imagine an hour is like the norm, an hour. That one extra minute is breaking the norm. So when you're in anger, and, zip up your mouth and don't talk not just for an hour, but even that extra minute, meaning it'll subdue the anger in a way that's beyond the norm. Because the norm, you have a reason to get angry. So get angry, get upset, get frustrated, get, sugar. If you do it for one extra minute, 61, there is that extra additional koyach. Have a great Shabbos. We'll see everyone Sunday, Mitzvah Shem. Yes, Yoni.
Your question.
Rabbi, did you find your hat?
Yes.
Find your hat, Rabbi?
Yes, I got my hat. Yes, Yoni. What?
Okay.
Good.
So from this Maamar, it's a question I've had, but I think that the Rebbe himself is bringing out the question in the Maamar. It's so interesting because I feel like he's mamish like talking to us today. But I feel like when he's talking about if we're doing it for ourselves or we're doing it for Hashem, there seems to be, and Dafka not by Chabad. Chabad is one of the few, sects or groups that doesn't, where they do it for themselves and not for Hashem. I'm not saying Chasidim, I'm not saying Misnagdi, I'm not saying Litvak, but it seems that a lot of people fall on the fact that they're part of a frum community, a part of the neighborhood, the shul, and it's like, wow, it's great. We could be part of this group, and we could be accepted, and we'll get welfare checks, and the Rebbe will give us checks, and we'll get apartments, and and we'll do everything together. We'll have like this wonderful herd kind of mentality, and we get all the benefits from it. Like, yeah, I'll put on a black hat, I'll put on a strimal, I'll become part, and I fooled everybody or whatever just because I joined the club. Meaning, like, yes, of course, I love Hashem, I want to be part of Hashem, I want to be part of the Jewish nation, but on the other hand, I want to be part of the group, meaning I want to be part of the group because I can reap benefits for my children, for Shidduchim. So I feel like this Maamar and stuff is really bringing this out.
Okay, excellent point. And I would say, and I've said it before, but it's worth repeating, that you can't dismiss completely the virtue of belonging to a community and belonging to a group. There's something Torah sanctioned and Torah driven and Torah desired. We have a rule, Yoni, al tifresh min hatzibur. Don't separate yourself from the community. Now you're talking about living off the community. That's another story, and that's not what this Maamar is about. That doesn't come. That's a different discussion, and we've discussed that too. We're talking about, is your commitment because of the community, or is your commitment because of him? And that's what we're learning in the Maamar, and that's why it's so important to learn Chasidus. That's all I can say. I can't. I wish 5,000 people would be learning together with us, so we could. It's not my words. It's the Maamar. It's Chasidus Chabad gives the tools of dealing and thinking about these issues. That's all. Every learning is good. Musar is gewaldig, but it's a different orientation. Here we're talking about really thinking, and getting, and not becoming despondent and depressed. I'm living. In other words, I'm not going to conclude, Yoni, like you were intimating that, because I'm I'm doing it because I'm in a community, therefore I'm no good. I'm not going to conclude that. What I am going to say is, you still can do better. The Maamar is talking about doing better. The Chabad mindset and paradigm is always better. Not to stuff and degrade and that's Musar. Of course, we have Maamarim that talk about that. I'm not, but it's Chassidish and Musar. It's because you're so special, like Abraham Tversky says, right? That he grew up and his father would tell him when he did something inappropriate as pastnit. It's not befitting. That's the attitude of Chasidus Bichlal. In other words, that you did something wrong. Okay, we know you did, but you know who you are. You know where you come from. So now you could say, well, and today this is an issue, especially with the youth. I have it, with my own teenagers and daughters, and in discussions. Do I do it because someone else tells me to do it? Should I care because someone else says I should do it this way? You know what the answer is? And the Torah, not minig hamokim. It's a whole section in the Gemara in Psachim, right, Shmuel? A whole section of minig hamokim. There's something to be said. You have to behave and dress a certain way when you're in a certain community. It's not outrageous. Respect. This is the community. I told you, people that don't like living in a certain community, they move to another community. So what do we see, Yoni? We see that community plays a very important role in religion in general and in our religion in particular. It's in Pirkei Avos. Have a goylel in Kaim Torah. I mean, there's a quote from Pirkei Avos. Why? Why can't I learn Torah in New Mexico? Of course you have to learn Torah in New Mexico. But it's much more difficult. You're on your own. When you go to a Makom Torah, it's easier. So that's a value. And that's an intrinsic value, an important one. Nevertheless, as a student of Torah, and especially a student of Torah that's permeated with Chasidus, then you understand that you're not doing it because of the community. You're doing it because of Hashem. That's the answer. That's the way I reconcile it. Chevra, gotta go. Sei gesund. Have a good day, everyone. Good Shabbos. Take care.